In today's video, we are going to recap the 2020 American post-apocalyptic sci-fi thriller film, Love and Monster. Warning, spoilers ahead. At the beginning of the movie, a meteor named Agatha-16 is seen hurtling towards Earth. All nations destroy it by launching rockets towards it. They manage to blow up the asteroid. Unfortunately, this led to chemical compounds from the rockets raining down on the Earth's atmosphere. Several creatures begin mutating things into gigantic monsters. In the present day, 95% of the human population is gone. Our unlikely hero, Joel Dawson, is found living in an underground bunker called Colonies with other survivors. The next scene shows us Joel preparing food and several handmade weapons. Joel is the only one in his colony who doesn't have a romantic partner, and disturbed by the romance sessions of everyone in the colony. A flashback is shown of the day that the monster apocalyptic event began. Joel and Amy were sitting on a hill in a car overlooking the town. He drew a picture of her, but admits that it's terrible. As they start to make out, they hear sirens and see the rockets being launched. They proceed to head back to their homes. Back in town, everyone is rushing to evacuate. They got separated, but managed to say goodbye before leaving the town. During the escape, Joel's parents died. Back in the present day, an ant mutant manages to breach the colony. As the others prepare to engage the monster, Joel wants to arm himself. He wants to join the fight with them too. They disagree and tell him to wait with the others. As the others are busy looking at the monitor, Joel goes out armed with a crossbow. Later, a scene shows one of his mates getting devoured by the ants. Joel manages to find the monster, but he freezes. His fellow survivors come to the rescue, shooting and slashing the mutant into pieces. He usually draws the mutants as he sees them and uses them in a guide to survive in this new world. One afternoon, he manages to make contact with Amy over the radio. She is staying with another colony of survivors at Jenner Beach. During the colony meeting, Joel asks how far Amy's colony is. They reply 85 miles from their current location. Joel decides to go out on his own and to find Amy, but the rest of the colony advises against it. One guy tries to talk Joel out of the idea of going out, but he keeps insisting. Ignoring the others, Joel arms up and brings a radio and some food supplies. They all say goodbye to Joel before he goes outside the bunker. Next scene shows us Joel heading downtown, passing a junkyard. Downtown, he enters the house and encounters a frog monster in a pond. A fight to survive is about to begin, but he freezes. The frog almost catches Joel with its very long, sticky tongue. This time, the frog misses, but not the next time. Joel gets strangled by the monster. A stray dog shows up and helps Joel. He follows the dog into a bus and frees him from the frog monster. Inside the bus, Joel discovers the dog is called Boy. Joel touches a red dress that belonged to Boy's previous owner. Boy gets defensive. Joel spends a night on the bus with Boy. In the morning before departing, Joel spent some time sketching the frog monster and Boy's heroic act. As Joel departs, Boy follows him. Joel decides to let Boy follow him. Boy happens to prove an excellent companion as he manages to keep Joel from eating poison berries. Along the journey, we can see the duo passing by a few deserted areas and playing some frisbee. Joel walks without paying attention to the surrounding area. He falls into some kind of a nest. Worm monsters show up. Joel manages to dodge the monsters. Right after that, Clyde and Minnow show up, pull him out, and kill the creatures using a grenade. Joel explains why he is out here without his colony. In questioning Joel for being out in the field with the little expertise that he has, they offer to let him and Boy join them on their adventure to the mountains where the temperature is too cold for monsters. Along the way, they stop on a high ground. Minnow helps him improve his aim with his crossbow. Clyde teaches Joel a few things about dealing with monsters. A few moments later, Clyde has Joel take off his shirt. They find a giant snail monster that they call boulder snails. Clyde tells Joel to stay still, and he sneaks Joel's shirt to the snail. This will draw the other monsters away from them. He and Minnow point out that some monsters are friendly, but you can mostly tell by looking at their eyes. At night, Joel continues his routine on drawing while Boy rests with Minnow. A few days have passed and their paths no longer align. Clyde and Minnow head to the mountain area and Joel continues his adventure alone. Clyde gives him a hand grenade as a parting gift. Joel gives Minnow a tube of lipstick as they hug and say goodbye. They split up, and Joel goes back into the forest and adventures to the swamp area. Boy senses a dangerous monster around, a large centipede. Boy hides under the duck boat as the monster appears. Joel nervously prepares his crossbow right before the monster knocks him away from Boy. He gets back up, recovers, and gathers his courage and shoots the monster twice to save Boy. He succeeds in defeating it and cherishes the moment with Boy. On one rainy evening, Joel and Boy seek shelter. They find a robot called Mavis. Mavis turns on and has a few conversations with Joel. The same question arises: why is Joel adventuring outside his colony bunker? Mavis donates her limited amount of battery power left to power up Joel's radio. He manages to get in touch with Amy and finds that he is less than 10 miles away from her location. Their communication is cut off due to Mavis's low battery power. Later, Mavis displays to Joel a video memory of his mother saying encouraging words to him, moving him to tears and bringing flashbacks of his first encounter with the colony. The night ends with Mavis and Joel watching Sky Jelly. Then, Mavis's battery runs out completely. In the morning, Joel buries the robot. The next day, Joel and Boy continue their journey. The next scene shows a queen sand gobbler chasing them. They manage to hide on a piece of old wood. Boy jumps into the river after his owner's dress falls in. The queen is back to targeting them. As the queen approaches Joel, he arms himself. At the right moment, Joel manages to throw a grenade into the creature's mouth. Joel swims to the shore and realizes that he's been bitten by numerous leeches, and he starts to hallucinate from the poison. He yells at Boy for almost getting them killed. Boy then runs away. Alone and hallucinating, Joel falls to the ground. Amy then appears to save Joel. He kisses her before passing out. Later, Joel wakes up in Amy's bunker. In an awkward situation, Joel tries to explain about the kiss. He learns that he actually kissed an older male survivor instead of Amy. Later, Amy shows him around. He then meets the yacht crew. Cap shows up and introduces himself as the leader. The yacht team explains that they're going to take Amy's colony to a safer location. Amy later shares Joel's story of leaving his colony to reach her colony. Next scene shows Joel having a private moment with Amy. She is happy to see him and glad that he survived. She also reveals she had a relationship with another survivor who died the year before, and still not moved on from it. Joel is trying to understand but is heartbroken. Later at night, Joel manages to contact his colony and share his adventure. Meanwhile, Cap gathers the survivors around to discuss his plan of moving everyone from one place to another. During a party, everyone seems to pass out. Joel realizes a plate of berries that was brought by the yacht team is the one Boy was trying to keep him away from. As Joel tries to warn Amy, Cap's henchman hits him from behind, knocking Joel out. In the morning, Joel wakes up tied up with Amy. Cap reveals his true intentions are not to save them, but instead rob them of their resources. A crab monster shows up at the beach, summoned by Cap. The giant crab is controlled by Cap using an electric remote that stuns it and forces it to obey its orders. Boy appears to help Joel fight the crab monster. Cap's henchman tries to shoot Boy, but Amy interferes right in time. Instead of Boy, she shot the crab monster. As the yacht team escapes with resources, Joel has to defend the colonies from the crab monster. The crab grabs Joel, and when he looks into the creature's eyes, he sees that it's one of the kinder monsters. Amy comes to the rescue, passing the grenade launcher to Joel. Instead of shooting the crab, Joel shoots the shackle. The crab then goes out to the yacht to devour Cap and his crew. In the next scene, Joel plans to return to his colony. He then gives his monster survival guide to Amy. Before parting ways with Amy, they share one last passionate kiss. She tells Joel she will go find him. Joel then leaves with Boy to make the trip back to the colony. As Joel arrives, they welcome his return with open arms. Joel leads his colony to the surface now that he has a better understanding of the creatures around him. The last scene of the movie shows us Joel inspiring the other colonies through the radio to go out to the surface. Amy's colony also left their bunker and starts their journey. Before the movie ends, we can see Clyde and Minnow arrive at their destination. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.